All right, guys, welcome to another live stream. Welcome to another live stream. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. All right, so these are three financial mistakes that you should avoid in 2025. Three financial mistakes you should avoid in 2025. And I think you should avoid these mistakes after 2025 as well. I think these mistakes hold a lot of people back financially, so don't make these mistakes. All right, number one, the first mistake is saving too much. A lot of people save too much money. And the problem with saving too much, most of you might think, oh, I thought it was good to save. Isn't it the opposite? Shouldn't you be saving more? And it is true. You should save money. Like, I think once you have your emergency fund stashed away and it can cover you up to 2 to 3 months or whatever the case may be, you shouldn't be saving too much, because the problem is when people save too much, they get used to seeing a certain amount of money in their bank account. So let's just say you never had 20K in your bank account and now you have $20,000 saved. You don't want to see that money go down, right? So the more you save, the less likely you are to invest that money, and it's going to hold you back because you can't save your way to wealth, right? You can't save your way to your financial goal. You can't, I guess you could, but it's going to take you, 20, 30 years. And if you want to wait that long, you can, but I would suggest not saving too much money, because it's just going to, I know a lot of people that have a few $100,000 saved, and they're just so used to seeing that money in their bank account that they don't want to let it go, and they just want to see it in their bank, right? And we know that banks don't offer that much interest. Maybe you're getting 0.05. I mean, maybe now since interest rates are up, you're getting a 3 to 4% return on your money at the bank. But typically you're not getting that much at the bank, right? Those interest rates are not they're not permanent. They change all the time. So you don't want to get used to just having a bunch of money in your bank account. So yeah, I think that's the first mistake. Don't save too much money. Again, and my rule of thumb is once you get to $10,000 saved up in the bank, you should be looking for ways to deploy that money, right? You shouldn't be, once it gets to 10,000, I would be looking for stocks or some type of paper asset to put that money into, because if you don't, you're just going to get used to that amount in the bank. And most people, they're just, I see, especially with the boomer generation, right? They like to save a lot. And back in the day, it was good because you could get a lot in your savings, right? It actually made sense. But now it doesn't make sense to save. It makes more sense to invest that money. And if you just keep piling it up in your bank account, it's not going to go anywhere, right? So that's the first mistake. Don't save too much money. Again, my rule of thumb is when it gets to $10,000, try to get rid of that money and see where you could put it. Now, I'm not saying just throw it into anything. Once you get to $10,000, just throw it into anything. But you need to really, deploy your money. Your money should be working for you, and you shouldn't have it just tucked away in the bank, making a small interest, right? So yeah, that's number one. All right. Number two. Number two is being too diversified. You don't want to be too diversified. Again, along with the savings, this is probably one that people are like, well, I thought you're supposed to be diversified. Diversification is supposed to help you. So my theory is this: if you're in your, the earlier you start, the better this actually makes sense, right? Because I think once you're concentrated in one field and one asset, you just, you're more focused on that asset. You tend to do a lot more research as opposed to, having 6, 7 assets that you're researching, and you kind of don't put your focus all into one thing. I remember when I first started off and I was trying to make money, I was trying to do like online stuff. I was trying to trade stocks. I was trying to do this, that, real estate. I didn't do real estate, but I was thinking about doing real estate, and my time went to researching and things like that. So, pick one thing that you're good at and or that you're interested in, and focus on that, opposed to having 5 to 6 things that you potentially could be good at, but you don't see the full effect because you're allocating so much of your energy towards each of those six things. So yeah, and the thing is, the younger you are, the better this works out, right? And it holds true when you get older. But the thing is, older people don't see it that way because they wasted their time when they were younger, right? So if you were in your, let's say you were 20, and you focused on one thing for every 2 years, right? So let's just say from 20 to 22, you focused on one thing and it failed, right? Well, then from 22 to 24, you focused on one thing and it failed. And let's just say 24 to 26, you focused on one thing and it actually popped off, right? You did multiple things, but you focused on one thing at a time. So that way you could get the best result and you could put all of your efforts, all of your resources to that one thing to make sure it actually worked out. And I think the earlier you do it, the more likely this is to work out for you. Now, I think the same thing holds true when you get older. I think, but older people would say, no, this is not the case because they don't have that much time. It's because they wasted the time. But just because they wasted the time doesn't mean that that philosophy doesn't hold true. I think once you concentrate on something, you're more likely to do better at it. I mean, it's just the more time you put into something, the better you'll get at it. So I think that is the case. Also, I don't think, I use 2 years as an example, but I think you should give at least, something at least 3 years to work out. And then if in that third year you see some progress, maybe you add an additional year or two just to see it pan out. I could give you an example. Like me in the crypto space, the first cycle was 2016, 2017 to 2018, some around there. I didn't get the first cycle. I was new and I didn't understand the cycles. So, but I saw the potential. So that's another thing too. If you could see the potential in something after you put 3 years in it, then I would say continue because I saw the potential in crypto and it worked out for me. Right? I was able to learn from the previous two cycles from 2017, 2018 to 2020 to 2021 to now take advantage of this 2024 to 2025 bull cycle. So sometimes you have to give the thing you're concentrating on a little more time, but you need to assess that at the end of the 3 years. So like I said, if you give something 3 years, after the third year, do you see progress and do you see potential? Do you see something working for it, right? Because it may not necessarily work out within those 3 years, but you may see something there that says, if I give this thing an additional 2 to 3 years, it's going to work out for me. Okay, so number three is, and again, this is going to be controversial too. I actually made a video on this, why paper assets are better than real estate, but don't get into a home too quickly. Now, a home and a rental property are different. If you're going to do a rental property, if you're going to Airbnb it and you're going to make it as a business, then that's totally different. But I don't think you should spend too much money owning a home. And now, most people would say, it goes up in equity. But actually, I was just watching Richard Fain's channel, and he said he bought a house for 2012 in 2012 for $395,000, and he just sold it recently for $600,000. Now, obviously, if you do the math, he got a profit of around $200K. He said he had to pay the broker fees and stuff like that. So he ended up coming out with, I think we said like 170. So he was in profit, right? Put up 395, he got 170. But that was a total of 12 years, right? 12 years it took him to get that profit. It was safe profit, and it was somewhere where he could store his money. And I think if you had extra money, now if you were a person that said, I don't want to move anywhere, I'm pretty sure I want to stay here, then maybe that makes sense. Again, I think it depends, but most people don't. Most people that are young don't want to stay in the same place. And they want to move around. So I don't think it's advantageous to buy a home if you want to move around. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And again, a lot of expenses come with buying a home. It's not just the down payment. You got to put the down payment. You got to buy furniture. you got to pay, get the grass cut, HOA fees. If there are some, then you have to pay taxes on the house. So it's not just, oh, I bought a home and that's it. Again, I think a home can make sense if the following is the case. One, you see yourself in a nice city. Maybe it's a populated city. You think you can get your business stuff done there. You think you can, build relationships there and stuff like that. So, but it's not something it's not something that most people do. Most people want to move around when they're younger, so it's typically not the case. But if you're one of those people that say, okay, I can see myself being here forever, then that could make sense for you. But even still, I think there's a lot more opportunity. Like I said, I made a video why paper assets are better than real estate. If you want to go check that video out, you could go check it out. But I just think there's a lot more opportunity, especially if you stick to the blue chip stocks, right? Like, let's say you bought a blue chip asset in the same year that Richard Fain bought that house in 2012. It would have been worth, 3 to 4 times more, opposed to just getting like 70% on your money, or whatever it was, 170 out of 195. It's probably a little bit lower than 50%. So I just think paper assets offer a lot more than real estate. All right, so those are the 3 common mistakes that I think you should not make in 2025. Again, the first one is saving too much money. If you save too much money, sometimes you just get used to that amount in your bank account and you don't want to deploy it. Your money's best served when it's deployed, and keeping it in your bank account is not going to help you out. And you're not going to get that much of an interest rate. A lot of people think now, because interest rates are up, that, oh, bank accounts, saving accounts are the way to go. And maybe if you lock in like one of those, those CDs, maybe if you lock one of those rates in for like the 3-4 years. Again, everything is not an absolute. Like, everything I say is not an absolute. I think there's there's a reason to do different options. Right? Not everything I say is not like, oh, you shouldn't do this. Even though I say, don't save too much, don't diversify too much, stay concentrated, don't buy a home. I think in each one of those situations, you can make a case why you should do those things. For instance, maybe you're saving for some type of investment. So maybe you do need to save for a year or two because you're trying to open up a business. So maybe saving too much in that instance works. But if you're trying to save to see a number in your bank account, that should not be the case. You shouldn't be saving just because. 2, again, diversification could be used once you made a lot of money. But we're talking about people that are just starting off. I think concentrating on one thing would be a lot better than saving a bunch of money. And then 3, getting into a home too quick. Now, if you're using it for business purposes, I think it's fine. But most people don't. Most people just buy a home because somebody told them to. Right? All right. So those are the 3 mistakes you should not make in 2025. Make sure you stay away from these mistakes. Again, there's always times where doing these things makes sense, but you got to make it make sense. All right. So that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.